now Congressman, how's that sound? James Gallagher joining us. Hey, James.
Great to be with you guys again.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, it's got a nice ring to it.
Doesn't it, though? And hopefully November it'll be permanent. It'll be your title then.
That's what we're working on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've seen you've been busy. I've been keeping up on your social media. Out and about. You've been out here again and back home. Before you head back, I guess you're heading back this morning. But let's talk a little bit about your first weeks on the job. Tell us about your experience in D.C.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you can imagine, it's definitely been a whirlwind. Kind of coming in midstream here, and having to figure out how the process works back there. It's different than what I've been used to in California. We've been able to get a good crew together back there and kind of hit the ground running, really. I mean, just this last week, we passed a pretty significant water bill that includes authorizing projects, along the Sacramento River and for our region. So that was a big win. We've been weighing in on agricultural issues, on fraud, waste, and abuse, trying to get on top of that issue and make sure that, money is available. The people in our community and the people and the most vulnerable. So all those things I think have been really positive developments. And we've been running. I'd say some days I feel like I'm spinning and have to kind of collect myself and reorganize. But we're doing well.
How's the family reacting so far? You're going to get the miles just like Doug used to. He had like that mileage building up for him with the trips back and forth. But how's the family responding so far?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, it's a challenge. I still have a young family, and so it's important to me that we make sure we balance that right, and that I have obviously time with them, and but it's a lot of time away. It's a lot of travel. So we're doing okay, but it's, as you can imagine, it's tough. And you miss things that you'd rather not miss. But yeah, I mean, my wife and I'm glad to have her in all of this. My wife Jana, and I think together we're navigating it and making it work for our family.
Yeah, I know she's probably. I'm sure Jana was very. I don't want to say used to it, but with your work down in the assembly too, I'm sure James kept your way a lot of times. Let's get into a little bit.
Yeah, well, then it was a little shorter commute.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's get into a little bit about this Water Resource Development Act, the WRDA, as it's called, that you had a big part in at least getting the initial authorization done here, right, for the funding.
Right.
Some of the highlights. Give us some of the highlights, James, of what this will do if passed.
Well, I want to say, first of all, I mean, Doug LaMalfa, was really instrumental to this. As water was very important to Doug, and he had been working on this already. Really, I think, laid a lot of the groundwork, for getting some of these projects focused on. And so it's been about every 4 years or so, they do a water resources development authorization, and what they call WRDA for short. And in that legislation, they authorize kind of new projects or projects that they want to get accomplished. And so it was important for us to make sure that we got some really key North State water issues in there. And probably the biggest thing is it's about $155 million authorized for Sacramento River projects, and that's throughout counties, throughout the district. So all of them benefit from that. Helps make sure that our water is going to be reliable for the future. Obviously, a very big issue for us that we're protecting our vital water resource. It also has projects in there for small communities like Sterling City and Robbins, really small communities who haven't been able to update their wastewater systems. It also has money in there to make sure that we're operating Shasta Dam, for instance, with the most modern technology, not a dam that was not a manual that was created in the 50s or 60s, but the latest technologies. And why is that important? That means that we're storing more water. We're maximizing that water rather than doing releases that we don't really need to do. And so, that was a big priority of Doug's as well, and it was good to be able to get that in the bill and get it out of committee.
Also, too, I see in there that a little help for Chico, too, with the 5 Mile Basin area. We know how important that is with the flooding issues that always come
big
up,
project
right?
There.
Yep.
And, we saw that, a couple of seasons ago, and we had that water come through, and, there's been a lot of silt buildup and a lot of vegetation that's been allowed to be built up in our flood control system there. It's a common problem. I mean, my view is, hey, if it's a man-made canal made for flood control, we should be able to clean it and clear it whenever we need to, But as you know, there's a lot of environmental restrictions oftentimes to being able to do that. Getting the 5 Mile project in there was, really, really big for me because, we need to make sure that Chico is protected from flood. And this is just another vital project we need to do. And so, so I was proud to be able to get that project in there, and hopefully we'll be able to get some, get some dirt moving here pretty soon.
Now that it's gone through committee, what's the next step for this in order for it to actually pass?
So next it'll be going, to a full floor vote, hopefully here pretty soon, and then we'll get that over to the Senate. And the idea being that, hey, we get this thing fully, passed and sent on to the president, hopefully within the next, month or two. And then that'll be ready to go, and these projects will be authorized for funding. The other step is we're trying to get them funded, through the appropriations process. So that's the other part of this that we're working pretty steadfast on.
Now, you said something when we first started here, James, about it's different than Sacramento, and I can imagine it is. What the dynamics? I mean, I'm just curious about the dynamics that go on. Let's say with you coming in to replace Doug for the short term right now. Hopefully, as you say, November it'll be more permanent. But what are some of those dynamics that you're finding differently in navigating through, let's say, the House when it comes to committee votes? Or and I assume that you probably stepped into those committees too that Doug was on at the time, right?
Well, not every one of them. The one I did get on that he was on was the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. That one is obviously very important. That's where we did this WRDA bill. But I did not get on to Natural Resources and Ag, which he was on as well. And, I wanted to be on those committees certainly, but, it's kind of like when you're the new guy, you don't get to choose, right? So I got onto Foreign Affairs, very important committee. And I also got onto the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. So, two good committees that I think deal with a lot of issues that we care about. Our military, for example, and our bases, science and technology, making sure we're staying up there. But I would say the biggest difference is, there's so many more people, right? I had 79 other colleagues in the state assembly. Now, you got 434, right? So you're trying to get to know everybody. You're trying to get to know, committee process works different. And again, you're kind of the new guy on the block. So, you don't have as much seniority. But people have been very welcoming and they get that, I'm coming in here and trying to really hit the ground running, and they've been very helpful. The floor, the first time you kind of go on there and you're just a lot of motion votes and you're trying to understand what's what there. And that can be a little overwhelming at first. But I feel like, we're picking it up. I'm a quick learner.
Yeah, I can imagine just the inner workings too, the politics of everything that's going on as you're coming in and you're hearing from some of the more senior members of the House saying, "Okay, James, this is how it's done. Here's how it really works."
Yeah, look, it's just like any place. There's a process, and there's different rules, right? That you kind of got to get to learn. And, when we came in, their appropriations process has kind of been already moving along, but we said, hey, we have projects that are really important to our region. And so that was one of the first things we did to try to get a focus on that. Working with our U.S. senators as well, because they're focused on these projects, working, across the aisle with Mike Thompson, who's, congressman that's been there for a long time and, knows the process. So I feel like we've been able to, utilize that. We've been able to hit the ground running, and we're already off to a good start.
And I know with Thompson, his name very familiar because he was instrumental working with Doug for years, especially with some of the fire issues, after the fire, especially Camp Fire in those areas in Santa Rosa that Thompson represents as well. So you've had a chance to get out and about, probably touching areas now that you really weren't out and about as in the assembly. What are those areas telling you about the issues here back in NorCal that are, very important to them? What are you hearing as you're getting out there and shaking hands?
Well, a lot of the area is very familiar, that we represented for a long time. Obviously Butte County and Chico and, Tehama County, Glenn County. So that part I feel like we know the people, we know the issues. There are new parts, and a lot of that is it's Lake County, Mendocino, and Sonoma, and we've been spending some time over there. And really, the issues are really similar. The cost of living has gotten out of control, and that is what everybody's frustrated about. And they want to know, hey, what are you doing to really lower our costs? And as you know, that's been my number one priority: cutting PG&E rates, figuring out how we lower our gas and fuel prices. How do we get real value for our commodities? Our rice and walnuts and peaches and prunes. Our ag economy. I've been really focused on that. And you said it just earlier, wildfire. It connects all of us. They had the North Bay fires over there, terrible, devastating fires that, burned out communities over there. We obviously had the Camp Fire, and a real focus on, hey, what are we doing? Are we making sure that reducing fuel loads and that, removing dead and dying trees and brush so that we never have these type of catastrophic fires again? Are we really moving the ball on that? And there's a great contrast between me and my opponent in that. He passed legislation that put high-speed rail first for funding and put wildfire prevention last. I've always put wildfire prevention and the protection of our communities first. And now that I'm in this role, I'm going to, do even more, everything I can, to make sure that we're doing the right by our rural communities who are threatened by this fire.
And I know you're heading back to, I think you're heading back this week, aren't you, James? Back to... I
am. I'm getting ready to head out on a plane here pretty soon.
That's right. So, well, we appreciate your time. So just navigating the halls of Congress, I can imagine, and just getting your feet on the ground, as you say, it's just been a few weeks here now. What are, as you're getting more involved, let's say on the national stage as well, James, with some of those issues, we know now the Iran conflict and everything, and you said it's kind of a learning curve, but how quick are you having to get up to speed on all this? I'm assuming it's like you got to be up to speed like right away.
It is. One is, it's hiring good staff, and we've been able to do that. We've got some, experienced folks who we've been able to hire on in the Capitol staff. And again, I got named to the Foreign Affairs Committee, so these international relations are very, very important to me, and they impact us, whether it's trade and how it impacts our farmers, making sure we have access to resources and rare earth minerals, which is going to be key, to the future of technology and then how we operate. Just had a committee hearing on that last week. And then the Iran war and like bringing that to a conclusion, but at the same time also ensuring the safety of this world. I mean, look, Iran is a bad actor. For over 40 years, they've terrorized the world. They've been behind all of these, proxy terrorist groups, right? And I think Marco Rubio just the other day really laid it out, in very clear terms that we want to get this to a resolution, but we're tired of dealing with this. And I think the world, and we need to show strength, in our diplomacy and show that we mean business. But we also know that, hey, look, we need to get, global fuel prices, stabilized. We need to make sure that we have, strong relationships, throughout the world. And look, I think that is really coming together. There's obviously, been, hiccups here, especially recently, but a lot of that has to do with you're dealing with a non-rational actor in the world right now. And so, it's going to be something that I'm going to be focused on. How do we make sure that, we bring to a real lasting and real peace and stability in the world?
James, we appreciate your time. We know you're heading off to the airport shortly to start that trek back to Washington. But as always, James, over these months and years, we appreciate you taking the time. And let's keep it going. Be checking with you from time to time to see how you're doing, and leading into November, and of course the big election then. Let's finish with this. What is the feeling that you're seeing on Capitol Hill with the November midterms coming up? What are some of the feelings from the Republicans leading into this? It's going to be a big election.
We're motivated. I mean, we've gotten a lot done for the American people. We want to keep getting that done. This WRDA bill, pushing that out. We want to continue to get things done on infrastructure, on lowering people's costs. But what's really become real stark is what we're seeing on the Democratic side. We're seeing actual socialists, communists winning primaries. Never could be more stark. We have a group here who really believes that communism is the way forward. That taking from people, right, to redistribute to their chosen people is a way that it is totally antithetical to the American way, right? And so it's actually, we're very motivated to fight for American values in this upcoming election. I think that's what this is really going to be about. These mini mandamis, that you're seeing pop up all over the place. It's a real threat, and that's why we have to go out there and make the case to the American people that we can't go down that road. We know what that looks like. History has shown us what that looks like. It's failure. It's mass poverty. It's quite frankly mass murder. Millions of people worldwide who have died under communist regimes. We never want to ever go down that road.
James Gallagher. Wait a second, I got it back. Congressman James Gallagher. There we go. James, we appreciate your time as always, buddy. Have a safe trip back.
Always great to be with you guys.
You bet. We'll talk to you soon.